All right. So I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and get started if you're ready, Karen.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
Cool. So welcome everybody to the labor cost webinar. I'm Luke. I am with ClockShark, and this is Karen. She's hosting this with us today. She's from 24-Hour Bookkeeper. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
There's some stuff about me. I'm kind of shy, believe it or not, but I've been with ClockShark for 6 years, roughly. I run our customer success and support department here with ClockShark. Excited to be here today to talk to you about labor costing.
Yeah. And I'm Karen Woodman. We've been around for about 11 years, and we are Intuit folks and construction folks. So we do work for construction companies throughout the US, helping them get their accounting put together, get their workflows in place, and give them the information they're looking for. So everything in between there, we're doing. So we are in that sandbox.
Right, you guys make all the magic happen. ClockShark, we get all the time allocated and record all that good stuff, and then send it to you guys, and you do all the hard work. So
I wish it sounded that great, but yes, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. But yeah, we're the ones responsible to make sure the information comes out right. So happy to do it.
100%, awesome. All right. We also have with us today Felicia from ClockShark and Michelle from 24-Hour Bookkeeper. They will be behind the scenes answering questions, helping anyone out in the audience that needs anything. So welcome, Felicia and Michelle. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
The gurus, the true gurus.
Right, the gurus. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, Luke, you and I mean, we know we're good at this stuff, but if you got a question, throw it in there and you're going to get a good answer.
Yep. Michelle and Felicia will take good care of you. They know what they're talking about. And if they can't find the answer for you immediately, they'll get you an answer or figure out how to follow up with you afterwards. So yeah, anything you need, let them know in the Q&A section. So speaking of that, before we get started, a little quick housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded. We'll definitely send you the recording. It comes out tomorrow at some point. So check your email tomorrow or over the weekend. If you want some exciting webinar action over the weekend, you should have the recording in your inbox. Submit questions anytime. So there is a Q&A box in the webinar. As we just mentioned, Felicia and Michelle will be there to answer them. And Karen and I will also try to answer some if that fits in with where we're going with the webinar.
Yeah.
And during the webinar, also, we'll have 2 poll questions. Please take a minute just to answer the poll questions. They're super helpful for both us at ClockShark and Karen. Questions provide a lot of insight and help us make things better for you guys in the audience. So take care of those questions. All right. So the agenda for today's webinar, what are labor costs and why are they important? We'll talk about that. Benefits of integrating QuickBooks online and ClockShark. And then we'll actually get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty of how the integration works. We won't do a full detailed walkthrough of the integration, but we'll get you some screenshots, show you some of the detailed steps, and to see how the integration works and what the benefits are of it, so you can become a rock star and help get better at labor costing.
And work smarter, not harder.
I think that's
ideally.
Right, exactly. Cool. So let's move to the poll question. So poll question 1, you should see this coming up on your screen. Go ahead and take a quick minute and answer the poll question for us if you can.
Every time I see this, just from my standpoint and our experience, just want everybody to know that a lot of times we recognize that you want to track everything, and the challenge comes into how do I actually do that? And when you think of these, we're throwing them up here and, a couple line items, but every single one of those has its own piece to it. Right. So that's at least knowing that you want to get there is a big piece. And we're, I'm kind of excited to see what we think. I mean, I think I already know what the hardest one is to track.
Right. They're definitely all important if you want to get your costing done right. And I'm glad so far. I don't think I've seen anyone pick the should I be tracking costs option. So that's really exciting. Looks like we got lots of people here that know they should be tracking something. So
yeah. And it's okay if that's what you're going to say, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Just know that if should you be, yes, right? Like, we're not in business because the sky is blue. It's okay to make money. Oh, and nobody did it, so it's good, right?
Yep, exactly. So we are going to go ahead and share the results now. You should be seeing the results, actually. Sorry about that. Cool. All right, so looks like the hardest cost to track by an overwhelming amount, 65% of the audience was tracking labor, which is what I think is also the hardest thing to track, because it's a tangible, not a tangible thing. Well, not necessarily a tangible thing, but you have people all over the place. You have workers all over the place. You have, might be on different job sites, different areas. You're not always sure what they're doing, where they're at, how hard they're working.
And all the costs that go into it, right? Like, there's so many things you have to put together. When you pay somebody by the hour, it's not just by the hour. There's way more costs associated with that. And then how do you work to control that? And I don't know that we're going to cover all those pieces, but we're going to cover a lot of it. And so glad to hear that labor is the main one, because that's what we're doing in this webinar.
Yep.
To make that easier.
Right. So let's keep moving here. All right. So next, what are labor costs and why is it important? All right. So, kind of plainly put, right, labor costs are all wages paid to employees, as well as the cost of the employee benefits, payroll taxes, and overhead. Overhead's always funny to me, Karen. What would you consider overhead for a business?
Insurance, and actually, anything it takes to operate your business. So when you think about it, when you're looking at your cost of labor and your direct costs, right? So I needed one person to work on this particular spot. You still need to operate your business, and you're in business to create revenue to cover all those costs. So ideally, if you can identify what your overhead is, which is insurance, office expense, overhead wages and taxes, advertising, all these things, put them together, work to get them allocated to, and add it to the hourly rate or add it to the job or whatever that looks like. But I think I always want people to understand that your goal ultimately in tracking labor costs is to make potentially your estimating better, right? And to be profitable. So you have to think about putting all the pieces together in that rate to make sure that you're covered, so you're not operating at a loss.
Yep, 100%. I think what's always interesting to me, and when I've worked with a lot of customers, is especially on the insurance or the unemployment insurance and all that good stuff. A lot of that, the type of insurance and the amount of money you're paying is really depends on the type of work that an employee could be doing. And I run into a lot of customers that don't maybe necessarily realize that, and why it's important to not only track the number of hours that they're working, but track the number of hours they're working on the specific type of job. So your insurance you pay for an electrician is going to be a lot higher than for a general laborer in a construction environment, because the electrician obviously is dealing with death potentially if they touch the wrong part. So it's interesting, and it's really important to make sure you get that tracked, and kind of leads to the next bullet point, that all of this leads to getting accurate financials, not losing money, and then improving your estimate accuracy. So tell us a little bit about, the back end of that.
Yeah. So a lot of times our clients are saying, hey, I look at my profit and loss, and I don't know that I'm really seeing the true costs. Like, something just doesn't look right. And I need that true cost, because if I'm billing at $75 an hour or $100 an hour or even $40 an hour, I actually don't know if I'm covering all my costs. So if you can work towards understanding what your labor really truly costs you, which again is benefits, taxes, which is also called burden, and potentially some other pieces, like sometimes there's car allowances, there's all these extra things that are employee benefits and that are outside of just the health and dental and things like that. If you can understand what that looks like, then you can get a better picture. And obviously, when it comes to not losing money, when you think of labor potentially being, your largest direct cost, depending what kind of business you have, you want to make sure that you're covered. And because it can be a little bit tough to control employee costs, from literally the level of, punching and punching out, you want to make sure that you're really drilled down, and the more information you have, the better you're going to be able to see patterns and really evaluate if you're, losing or making money. And I already spoke to the estimating, but this is where, when you put the information together, it's awesome. But if you're not looking at it or doing anything with it,
right,
bring it back to estimating.
Exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. So tell us a little bit about the difference between labor costs and job costs. I think I know, but there might be some people out there that think it's all one and the same, but how is it different?
Yeah. So labor cost is one of the items in job costs. So if you were, I always try to think of things in real life. So I have a project, what is everything that it takes to make this project happen outside of just operating my company as a whole? And labor is one of those things. Other examples would be material costs, subcontractor costs, and then you might have, equipment rental, just other miscellaneous things. So labor, which a lot of times is a big piece that we want to
obviously the number one thing we got on our poll question, right?
Totally. So, yeah. Yes. So just understand that it is just one part of the big picture. I don't want to, it's not like it's not apples and apples. It's like, apples and oranges, but you need, or I should say job cost is a fruit basket and labor would just be an apple. That's really what I should say.
There you go. I like that. That's good. Yeah. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
I use fruit a lot actually when I use analogies. I'm not sure why, but all right.
If it works, it works, right? That's awesome.
Don't fix it. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. So let's move along. So let's start chatting a little bit about the benefits. So we know what job costing is. We know what labor costing is, why it's important. Let's talk about the benefits of integrating QuickBooks Online and ClockShark.
Yeah.
So got some good bullet points here, right? Work smarter, not harder, streamline the process, eliminate human error, increase accuracy, real-time information. These are all super important. Some of these, buzzwords, right?
Yeah.
Phrases, cool stuff. To me, the benefits with ClockShark has been, in the first poll question we had was, what's the hardest thing to track is your labor costs. So that's where ClockShark, that's why we started creating ClockShark, why we wanted to help customers be able to track labor, because with ClockShark you can track your employees, where they're at, the job they're working on, what type of work they're doing at the job site, and the total number of hours involved. Employees can also add notes to their job, to their timesheets that go back to the administrators. And so that's awesome, right? So we did that and we're like, hey, this is great. We have all this information now that's not on a piece of paper, right? We talked to countless companies that track time with paper. And then we said, well, what companies can we send this information to help, continue making people's lives better? And that's how we got connected with QuickBooks, and hey, let's integrate with QuickBooks Online. So we've been doing that basically since we started ClockShark as well. And so with that, you get all of the information in ClockShark, all of the labor time tracking information, and then we send it into QuickBooks basically with the push of a button. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. I'll show you kind of how that works. But tell us the difference between, maybe exporting from ClockShark into QuickBooks versus having to do that all manually in QuickBooks, and why someone using QuickBooks would be interested in streamlining that.
So I'd say number one, definitely being able to control it, right? So you've got people all over the place out in the field, unless, and I know everyone can understand when you get a paper time card and it has a coffee stain or a footprint, or you might have to just try to understand what job that's, there are some good reasons
to read it,
there, right? Well, if you could even get it, how about that? If you could even get the copy of the time card on time for payroll, because didn't you tell me way back when it was like a Friday afternoon, when you used to do payroll, right? Someone called you, be like, hey, I'm 45 minutes from the office.
Yeah, we used to do payroll every weekly payroll, and we would actually cut checks in our office, and people would call me basically at 5 o'clock on a Friday. this was back when I was fresh out of college, so I wanted to enjoy my Friday evenings, and they would call me and say they were an hour away from the office, but they really needed to get paid that week. And
Right.
I'd be stuck there, and then they bring me the paper timesheet, and then the rest of the process happened. Like, well, hey, I can't read what this says. How many hours did you have on this day? And at that point, I was,
It's a lot.
taking them at their word that they worked 8 hours that day, which most people are honest. So,
Right.
But it's always nice just having peace of mind with electronic time tracking, because it's the input that they put in from the app, so it's accurate. And it just helps that whole front end of that process.
Well, and I think the other thing for everyone to be thinking about is like, you're busy, right? You don't have time. And it's one thing if you have one person out, but if you have 3 people, 10 people, and as much as, and I work in construction, right? So the word technology, and you might've heard me say this before, swear word. Don't say the word technology. I love paper, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to understand that like you can't almost fight it at this point. Like you're going to get to the point where it's potentially going to affect how much money you're making. And there are applications that are out there, right? ClockShark can help you, can streamline the process, can make it easy. And then we have on here, eliminate human error. I mean, how many times could that potentially happen? How many times are you having to redo the payroll because the information is wrong or was whatever the situation? Like you have the opportunity to make it a lot easier. And that's why you got to utilize this integration. ClockShark gives you the right information. Everyone should be able to use it. It's out in the field. And then now you're able to connect that with your accounting. So work smarter, not harder. That's totally something I always say, because you want to reduce the amount of work you're putting in because you just don't have time. So this is a great opportunity to streamline your process, and you can go in baby steps, and you're going to see as we go through this, right, Luke, like it's not that tough, like pretty simple.
I mean,
on that aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the other biggest thing for me is just the accuracy part. You talked about eliminating human error and streamlining the process, and it's really the accuracy part, because that was always the killer for me, is knowing what I'm paying out and what it's costing me to put workers on a job is super important. But if it's not accurate, it doesn't matter in the end anyway, because you're probably overpaying. So,
well, and do you really want to wait a whole week to see what your costs are on that job? I think that's another thing that, as I look at real-time information, it's like, I don't have time because I want to be able to make real-time decisions. And if you don't have access to the information pretty much immediately, you're not able to do that. So can you do it the old way? Sure. That's fine. Right. But to be successful and to give you more information in real time, like this is definitely worth considering connecting these 2 apps together.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. So now I think we're going to get to our second poll question. Yeah, so we're going to get this opened up here for everyone to answer. How do you currently track your labor hours? So go ahead and pick your favorite answer, or maybe, what you do, what you would like, what you'd like to be doing.
And actually, I'm going to just call, Felicia, when we were talking about this and about, texting, like that is very much the world we live in, like here are my hours by text. We process payroll for some people, and sometimes like last minute, we'll get it by text message. It's like, what? Like that's not the right solution. And, but it's a reflection of things needing to be done right now. I need it right now. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. It's one of those things, you think it's good because you're getting the answer right away, but you're also just getting an answer that you've no idea for sure if it's the correct answer, right? It's the accuracy, right? Like,
and and some of this doesn't give you all the information. Like, can you by text put the job, what the start time, what the end time, what the break, what, like you don't have all that.
Type of work you were doing, a whole bunch of added notes if you needed. You could potentially miss out on a bunch of information. So. Cool. Yeah, looks like getting that poll question wrapped up. So the good news is the majority of people picked an app as a way to track labor hours. So that's awesome. Yeah, that's really great. It's good news. Paper time cards, though, coming in second. It's the that word paper time cards is like a swear word to me, kind of, when I hear that. So it's people use it a lot, but it's not always good.
Right. And like, can't fault anybody for doing what you know, right? And what's been the way for a long time. But now the functionality that you get will give you 10 times what you were getting with this. So you have to at
Right.
least be open-minded to go in that direction and understand. And maybe that's what you're doing in the webinar today. Like, hey, I'm just getting more information. I'm just trying to explore what this looks like. And it might feel scary, but I'm sure they can call you, they can call us, right? Like there's help. People are here
Yeah,
to
and
help.
it's crazy with the paper time cards, because even 6 years ago when we first started ClockShark, you had a lot of people saying, "Oh, we don't have smartphones for all of our employees," and that has changed dramatically, even just the last 5 to 6 years, where having a smartphone is now commonplace for literally everybody. So there really is, to me, when I talk to people that other than having an old school mindset or the way you've been doing it for years and years and years, there's just no reason to use paper time cards. Everyone has a phone.
Right.
There's other ways to do it. Even if you don't have a phone, there's different clock in methods with
Yep.
ClockShark specifically, or any app for that matter. So yeah, lots of good opportunities for people to track labor hours with something other than a piece of paper. So
Mhm. So this
awesome.
makes me think that they're also very excited about QuickBooks, which, if you don't already know me, is one of my favorite things to talk about.
Right. Yeah. So they're already using QuickBooks, which is awesome, hopefully. And if you're not,
Yes.
definitely, get a hold of Karen, and she'll help you
Yes.
get started, or, get
Totally.
started with it and then talk to her,
Yeah.
and streamline the whole process from front to back is the ultimate goal. So
Yeah.
cool. Let's take a look at what's next. So we've gone over, kind of the who and the what. So let's talk about how the integration works. This is the integration between QuickBooks and ClockShark. So like I said, I'm going to have some screenshots here. We won't do a full integration. I'm not going to bore you with the clicks and the entering of information, but I'll walk you through the integration process. And Karen, obviously chime in if you have any extra info on this. But from the ClockShark end, obviously, if you don't have ClockShark, you would need a ClockShark account. So you can always start a free trial of ClockShark. Definitely check it out. 14 days. No cost whatsoever, no card requirement to even try it. So check it out. Once you have ClockShark, though, it's really easy to get started, especially if you have QuickBooks. You see we have a integrations menu specifically in your ClockShark account. You would click on that and it takes you to the integrations page. Imagine that. Once you're there, it's really easy. You hit the add button to start your QuickBooks integration. You can also set this up from QuickBooks too. So if you go to the Intuit online app store and you're working through QuickBooks, you can find ClockShark, search through there, and then start a subscription of ClockShark that way, and even do the integration. So
and if you have ClockShark, even if you have ClockShark already and it's just not connected, you can actually connect it from within QuickBooks too.
100%. You can do the integration either way. So both opportunities. This just highlights the ClockShark side. If you do, we always, it's great to do it that way that you mentioned, Karen. We have a whole support and success team at ClockShark that helps people with integrations too. So if you'd rather do it that way, we can help you through the integration as well. So,
but either way, you're going to have to get on in the ClockShark side to get all this to work. So
100%.
you can connect, but
gonna have to check it out
a little bit more.
Side.
Yes.
Yep. So you would add the integration and then naturally pick QuickBooks Online. Hopefully, if you're using online. I know desktop is kind of like one of those bad things for Karen, but
it's not a bad thing. I just want to shout it from the rooftop to say, I know that QuickBooks Desktop has been the way for a long time, but QuickBooks Online has come such a long way, especially in the last few years. And honestly, if you think of the integration with ClockShark, seamless. And I'm not saying it's not seamless with desktop, but it's potentially clunkier because you're online and
you have to run a whole different, it's basically like the web connector. It's a whole different service to actually connect it, where it's a cloud-based connection with online. Everything's instant for the most part. So it's a little bit more seamless for sure with QuickBooks Online.
And I hear it all the time, like QuickBooks Desktop is the way to go. And I say, okay, but no, let me show you, let me help you.
And we've seen that progression too. And like I said, when we started, 5-6 years ago, desktop was huge, right? Everyone we talked to was like, oh, we use desktop, especially in the construction industry. There's a lot of older school construction businesses use QuickBooks Desktop. But that has definitely changed over the last 5-6 years with online and getting more functionality. So
So I won't judge, but this is a QBO webinar, so we're going the online route today.
We're gonna connect to QuickBooks Online.
Yeah.
And it's very secure. So once you do that, you connect to QuickBooks. You have to authorize it a few different times, and log into QuickBooks if you're doing it from the ClockShark side. And then this is where your authorization comes from. And hit the little fancy connect button there.
And I was just gonna say, because I know you probably hear it a lot, about when you said it's secure. A lot of people really get worried, but you have to understand that this is like bank level security. Yep. And for ClockShark and QuickBooks to work together, you guys must have to jump through a lot of hoops when you set up this integration.
Through 2 audits a year, I think, with Intuit's security. So it's 100% secure, basically.
Which means the information is encrypted, right?
Yep.
Which means you can't see what it is in between as it moves.
Exactly.
Do I have that right? Because I'm
when you hit when you hit the export button, it turns it into a garbled mess. Basically, it sends the data. So if anyone were, if in the theory someone were to try to look at it, they wouldn't even be able to see it.
Got it.
And then it comes to your side and it magically pops up on your screen in the way it should be.
Cool. Okay.
So very secure. So nothing to worry about there. So great. So you've connected. You've gone through the authorization, and now you're back in ClockShark. This is the mapping screen. So this is the magic that happens when you're exporting time from ClockShark into QBO. You have to tell it where to go in QuickBooks. You can't just hit a button and QuickBooks is magically going to know what to do with it. That'd be amazing. Maybe that's a new technology.
Put that to feedback, would you? Put it in the
team. But what we have here is a great screenshot of the, where you send the data. So you actually get to pick, some people use parent customers and then have sub jobs underneath in QBO. Some just use customers, some just use jobs. Some people use projects. There's a few different ways in QuickBooks, but they all work together. So your customers and jobs in QuickBooks show up on this left-hand side in the mappings page. And you actually can choose to import them into ClockShark. And you can choose what you want to import them as. So it could be a customer or a job. Projects is not listed separately on here. I know a lot of people in QBO use projects. It's very important, but projects basically are the same thing as a job. So it's going to come over into ClockShark as a job if it's listed as a project in QBO.
Can I add something here?
Yeah.
Okay, I have 2 things. And I hear this all the time. That's why I'm going to just take my opportunity to mention it. Sometimes people think that just because you connected the softwares together, you're quote unquote integrated. You are not. You may be connected, but until you do this, which there's a couple areas, right? Which we're going to get to, but
we'll
the mapping, you're not connected, you're not integrating, information will not move, even though you show that you're linked. So that would be point number 1. And then just as you look at this screen, you have to understand that we're basically saying, this is what it is in QuickBooks and this is what it is in ClockShark. We need to make sure it knows from both sides what this one piece is.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. 100%.
That's what we're doing in mapping.
Exactly. Making sure the information matches and is connected to each other so that when you actually go to send data back and forth, it knows where to place that data.
Yeah.
Because without that, you won't have anything. So very good point on the connection part is just the first step. Yeah. You're simply connecting the two. So
exactly. I'm connected. I'm integrated. No, you're not. You're connected, but you're not integrated.
And that goes back to earlier when I said, hey, if you're going to do an integration, please reach out to our implementation integration specialist team. They're there to help everyone get set up, which is critical to the success of the integration too. So, so this is a secondary screenshot. Go back here. So sorry, there we go. Yep, it's a duplicate screenshot, actually.
It just doesn't have the title, I think, on there. So
got it. Sorry
same
about
idea.
that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So you go through jobs and customers, you get those connected, so they're matching in both systems, and then you do the same thing with your employees. Obviously, you're gonna pay your employees in QBO. They're also in ClockShark, so they need to be connected. So you'll see your QuickBooks information, same setup, QuickBooks information on the left, ClockShark employee name. So you can import them as a new ClockShark employee, which is nice when you first do the integration. And then, moving forward, there's a few different ways to do it. It's actually really flexible. So you could even add a new employee in ClockShark first and get them tracking time right away, and then come back to your mappings and connect them after the fact. It's kind of detailed, but that's basically, there's some flexibility. You don't have to always put it in QuickBooks first. You can put it in ClockShark. We run into that a lot where people are like, oh, I have a new employee and I am not at the office. I can't put them in QuickBooks yet, but I need them to start tracking time. Like, great, just add them in ClockShark. You can connect them after the fact. So there's some flexibility there, but basically it's the same thing. It just has to be connected between the two systems. From there, vendors are also an option. So it's the same concept again. You have if you have vendors that you use that are 1099s, but you still want to track their hours, it's pretty important for some people I've talked to. You can bring them over into ClockShark. They'll actually show up as an employee in ClockShark. That's a product feature we're trying to get in there, that you can put someone as a vendor instead of an employee in ClockShark. But for now, they're an employee. Same concept though. You match it up to the ClockShark version. So they're connected.
So a lot of times, at least in my world, it's like, yeah, they're kind of a W-2, but like they're really 1099. So we, just the way that they're set up in your entity might be different, but you're treating them as if they're an employee. And this, right, Luke, would be the screen that you would be finding that person because they're listed as a vendor, not as an employee on your QuickBooks side.
Yep, exactly. So, and you see at the top here too of the screenshot, there's the whole workflow. So you start with QuickBooks customers, ClockShark customers, jobs, employees, vendors. So it basically is just a streamlined workflow that takes you through all the possible mappings you could have between the two systems.
Right.
Because so after vendors,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No. I was just gonna just piggyback off what you were saying. Like, I think just to recap the fact that there's a lot of pieces that you have to integrate because one employee is connected to potentially an employee, right? A project as you move through the service items. So just don't stop halfway or understand that, and it's pretty simple, but you have to put all the pieces together for it to successfully work.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. And just had a good question from Rebecca. She said, does that mean that the vendor then would be logging in and tracking time in ClockShark as employees do? In some cases, sure. It ultimately depends on the business. If you want that vendor to be tracking time so that maybe you can pay them, right? You can invoice or pay them based on the hours they worked. You could definitely have them track time using ClockShark. I've seen customers do it both ways. Some don't, some do, but the option is there for you. So hopefully that helps, Rebecca. Let us know if you have any other follow-up questions on that. Awesome. So next is service items. So earlier we talked about insurance and knowing what type of work employees are doing. So service items in QuickBooks are equal to the tasks in ClockShark. So one of the things in ClockShark is when someone is clocking in, they have to pick the job or customer they're working for or on and the type of work that they're doing, which is the ClockShark task. In general, those are connected to the service items in QuickBooks. So you see some examples here, right? Architectural engineering, surveying, pest control. These are some, you can title these whatever you want. You probably have some more info on service items.
Well, and you might not use them all, right? So just recognize this is pulling from your list.
Yep.
So you're not looking to necessarily connect all of your codes because you're not going to potentially connect the material code, right? Because this is labor. So anything that's a labor code, you tell me if I'm wrong, Luke, but that's kind of the idea.
Right.
That's
100%.
really what you're trying to push.
Yep.
And just to, add a real life situation here, when it comes to what's going on, you're gonna want to know, and I know want to know what they're doing. So this is allowing them to be accountable to put their time to the right code, which is what you're managing likely on your budget.
Yep.
This is where this is really important. And we want to train that employee, which, I'm assuming that's a mandatory field. Maybe it's not, it doesn't matter. But at this point, super important from the reporting side.
Yeah, absolutely. So you get those mapped up and then you move to the next step, which is reviewing and finalizing the mappings. You can see when we were doing this, it was so fast. So they started spinning before we could grab the screenshot. But behind that circle, you can see all the different items that are being reviewed and finalized. So it kind of gives you an overview of everything that you're doing, and it finalizes the connection And after that's done, you come back to your settings page. So this is your integration settings in ClockShark all the time. Shows, the QuickBooks logo, shows your online account. You can log in right to QuickBooks from this screen if you're in ClockShark and you need to get into it. There's a few different things. We won't get into the nitty gritty of all of these, but you can always check out your mappings on the left-hand side here. You see under the mappings option, you have your auto map directions. So that's kind of one of the more important things is moving forward after the initial integration, you can choose where you want to enter your info. So you could actually, in theory, enter everything in ClockShark first and have it go into QuickBooks. So you could enter all your new customers and jobs, your new tasks, your new employees, and then send those into QuickBooks. Or you can do them in QuickBooks first and go into ClockShark. Again, super flexible. You could pick one of those, but if you need to add it in one or the other first, you can manually map them together after the fact. And the other important part is billable time activities. And you'll see that there at the bottom. You have the option to set a default billable rate for all your time activities that you're sending over into QBO. That default time or that default billable rate can be overridden on a per employee basis as well. We'll show you that here in just a second.
Can I speak to billable charges?
Of course, 100%.
There's another thing that I only love if you're using them. So when you want to do billable charges, sometimes, people think like, yeah, of course it's billable. Like my time's billable, like in real life, but is it billable in your financial process? Because if you're sending them over billable, you have to be able to use them, which is when you create an invoice. So when I create an invoice, I'm going to see that charge and I'm going to show you that in a little bit, but this is where this is a default, right? You can put your time and then it'll mark it in that way. But if you don't use billable charges,
don't check that box.
Do not check that box.
Right.
Because it can mess you up your file pretty fast and it affects a lot more areas. So just be diligent about doing that. And you did mention, I think, that like it'll override what you might have in QuickBooks, correct? When it pushes?
Correct. Yeah. If you set up a specific billable rate in ClockShark for time activities and you send that into QBO, it would take that for that set of hours that were worked for that rate. Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Awesome. So again, this is kind of following up on that billable status, right? So in ClockShark, you have that default billable rate you can mark on the settings page, but you can go in and actually change that per employee. So Karen here's, $60 an hour, her billable rate. You could set that up for all of your employees. And then when you export those hours into QBO, it would come over as that billable rate for that employee.
So it is typical, at least in where I am, is that with our clients is that they might have a couple people that work there that are not, like we want them to track their time, but they're not actually billable because they might be salaried or that's on the cost side, but you know what I'm saying? We're not doing that. So this is a great spot that you can come in individually, mark them non-billable. It doesn't, the rule doesn't apply to everybody. It just
exactly
here.
Yep. You can pick and choose who you want. So then it just isn't affecting your books the wrong way if necessary on the other end. So awesome. So we have all that information mapped, integrated, connected, billable status, all that stuff is set up. The next thing you need to do is have people start tracking their time, right? So in the ClockShark mobile app, like I mentioned a little bit ago, you pick a job and a task to clock into. So you're recording the hours to that job and task. And there's a picture of the mobile app clocked into this job site, 11 Teller Road. And this is a screenshot of a timesheet in ClockShark. So this employee has gone through the whole week, recorded all their time. On the left-hand side, you can see the job and then the different tasks underneath it. So 8 hours, on the Anderson Johnson job, doing project management, 8 hours doing insulation, 5.5 doing painting, etc. So you accrue all these hours for the week in ClockShark, which is, again, way better than getting a paper timesheet at the end of the week, staying at the office till 7 p.m. And you can come in and approve those hours if you have an approval process. So you see those green approval buttons there. And then once that's done and you're connected, all you do is hit a button and you're going to export that time to QuickBooks. So it's really simple, really easy, really streamlined, real time I know some companies that will do it day by day even. So they might approve a day's worth of time for all their employees and export it. They come back the next day and do the same thing. So it's really effective in that regard. And once you send that time over into QuickBooks, it's going to come over into QBO and to the time activity or the weekly timesheet. This is like a specific breakdown of the time activity. Generally, it lands in the weekly timesheet as well. And I'm going to let Karine kind of take the reins here and lead us on the QuickBooks side.
Thank you. So just as Luke mentioned, when you hit that export button, that's going to basically log that in a time activity function, meaning that, as he mentioned, you can get them on the timesheet, but this is a single time activity. So as you see, this will tell you the start time, the end time. It'll tell you the service as you picked it, and then it'll show you your billable rate. Now, this is what you're charging your customer. So what's nice about this is you don't have to come in here and look at them each time. That might be someone's wondering, but just so you're aware that it's literally pushing all this information from ClockShark over. And at the very bottom, if you see, it gives you a summary. So basically this time activity is $520 to your customer. So it does kind of summarize some of that information for you. All right, let's sneak over to the next screen. Okay, so I am making an assumption that we're using projects. Okay, so that's where we are right here. So this is back to my desktop versus QBO portion, but this is where QuickBooks Online has come a long way in using projects, which is a light version of job costing. And that's basically what we're doing here, right? So we're pushing time, tag to a job, tag to a service item. And now we want to be able to look at that and manage that from the QuickBooks side. So this is a project that we opened. When you go in, you have an overview screen. So when you come in and then there's time activity, you have to toggle to that area. There's 4 areas there. And this is going to show you the time that was pushed over. So I'm going to, in the next screen, which we're not getting to yet, but we'll talk about the cost. So if you push something over and there's no cost, I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But if you had billable time over, it's going to reflect that on the right 2 columns there. So it'll show you for that time period, who the employees are, how many hours they logged to that job, and then you can go into the detail by clicking on the arrows. What's really nice about this is it allows you to see kind of bigger picture, but recognize that this is a screen. This is not a report. I'm going to go over the reports too in a little bit, but this is where you're going to come in and manage. You can also, where you see it says group by employee, you can also group by service items. So if you want to say, okay, I want to see how much time, was spent on X type of work, you can also toggle that back. So information is real time, it's available to you. You can see this on every project. And then once we allocate costs, you can manage all of your costs on the project also. Okay, let's jump to the next screen.
Awesome.
Along here. So when it comes to allocating costs, so ClockShark is moving over billable time, which has a billable rate, which is what your customer pays. But you might want to go in there and make sure that you allocate the cost because that's really what you're managing. So there is a hourly cost rate in the projects area, and it'll show you all of your employees. And if you click on that little pencil, it'll open up what's on the right-hand side, which is the cost rate calculator. This is a very basic calculator that allows you to get some basic calculations in of what that employee might cost you. If you already know what that cost rate looks like, just pick a field, hit add, and we're good. It'll at least calculate it that way. All right.
Right, and super important that that's the distinction between that and the billable, right? Because I think that gets confused a lot with, in general, the people that we talk to. So
yes, and we want to manage costs ultimately because we're in the business of making money, right?
Exactly.
So when you're, this is just drilled down a little bit further. So this goes to show all the time entries, what service they went to, how many hours, what the total cost was. And then obviously if it was marked billable, it would come in with the billable rate and the billable time that we went ahead and pushed over. Yep. All right.
Perfect.
All right. So this is when you do mark something billable in QuickBooks. It'll actually, when you create an invoice function, it'll pull up everything that is marked billable on the right-hand side on that column. So all that time that I pushed, I can decide to bill it right now, literally by clicking add. So as soon as I pick the customer, because it's tracked by the job from ClockShark, it'll go ahead and show up here, and then it'll allow me just to add it into my invoice. All right.
So easy. I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, what?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you do it this way if you're billing?
And actually, before you jump to the next screen, so when I said earlier about if you're not using billable charges, don't use them, because people get really frustrated when they get to the screen. They're like, just make all that go away.
Right.
Well, you're the one putting it in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
So billable charges, unless we use them, nowhere on expenses, on time, the whole works. Okay.
Got it.
So we'll sneak over to the next screen. So once I hit add and I move those into my invoice, this is basically what my invoice looks like. It'll go ahead and add the hours. Now, in QuickBooks, you can change just about anything that you want. Don't tell anybody I said that, but that's the truth. So if I wanted to make that billable rate a different rate, I could come in here and I could edit it if I wanted to. And if you notice on the right-hand side next to the garbage can, there's a little icon that looks like a link, and that is linked to the time activity, which created all of that information that is in there. So you could always click on that and open it and see how it's linked to, what populated that information if ever you needed to reference. And it's tied to your transaction, which is, again, super easy, streamline, all your information's in one spot. And you can't really get that in desktop. You can get it in online. Okay. All right. So let's sneak over to the next screen, please.
Awesome.
Okay.
Reports. Yes. Reports. Woo.
Reports. Yes. Right. This is the most exciting part, because now you get to see all the hard work come into play. So I mentioned in projects, when you're managing your costs, you're really looking at the screen. It's not in a report format, but you do have project reports, and this is one of them. So time cost by employee allows you to pull up all of the information related to that project, which is something that I think people were really complaining about not being able to have access to, which was labor and time in QuickBooks Online. That has been solved. That is all here. So you're really able to manage both costs, both billable totals, all in one report. So let's say your report's over, your job's over, and you want to pull this report, save it, do whatever you want, access it. And, because a lot of times we'll see how much time did it take on this job? And, hey, I did a job similar to that 6 months ago. You're now able to pull that information. So it's really nice to be able to have that handy. Okay.
Right.
Move on. I know we're
awesome.
We're getting a little low on time here. Okay, so I'll try to speed through my next slide or two. So basically, again, I'm in the project screen here, and I'm in the overview area, and this allows me to manage profitability. I have my income. What are my costs? What are my profits? And in your costs is the time that pushed from ClockShark and moved it over. So I can see that by employee. I can also see it from a profit and loss standpoint. I can see in expenses. So this is a great place to be able to manage, which is really what people want. How much am I making on this project? And I want to manage what's being tagged to the job in costs.
Looks like on this screenshot, we need to increase our bill rates a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Not making very much there. See this, but you know what you just said? At least you know that.
Exactly.
How many people don't know that?
The report's helpful.
Yeah.
Great tool.
Right on cue there, Luke. Good job.
Right.
All right.
All right. Let's see what we got next.
Okay. And this is just another option that you're able to come in here. And like I just mentioned, you can look at hourly costs. You can look at payroll expense in that cost column on the project side. Okay.
Cool.
Want to allow a little bit of time. So that might have been a lot.
So we have one question from Debbie, and this, Karen, might be for you. She says, why is there such a big difference between hourly cost and payroll cost in the reports?
Because hourly is literally an hourly rate. So I don't know if maybe I'm not understanding the question specifically, but a lot of times that's where the challenge comes in a lot of businesses, right? Like, I know that if I pay somebody $20 an hour, it's really not $20 an hour. It might be $27 an hour or $31 an hour because of all these things that are on top of that. So sometimes people have a hard time managing the cost side as a whole when they run payroll versus being able to drill it down into a job. And I think that's the benefit of being able to gather your true cost by adding overhead and all those things to your cost rate. Which is different than what you pay the actual employee per hour. I have no idea if I was able to answer that, but.
Awesome. I think it was good. Yeah. Looking through the rest of the questions here too, while you're finishing up to see. Let's see. Oh, so Debbie followed up. Sorry. So she followed up. She said the percent of profit margin is different When I'm looking to know what my actual P&L is, which one do I look at?
Okay, that's a whole nother avenue. But the quick thing that I'm going to tell you is, and I don't know if you're using projects or not, but you're not looking to, okay, big picture. Your P&L does not manage your projects. Okay, it manages your company. So I understand based on some old ways of using QuickBooks and using budgets and using profit and lots and chart of accounts to do that. In this case, using projects will allow you to manage your profitability because it's going to calculate things like time, which is a non-posting transaction. So you're never going to see those time activities on the P&L because they're non-posting. They have to have hit an actual account. So that's why they give you that project screen. To be able to see more information, even though it doesn't hit the actual financials. Hopefully that helps.
Awesome. She said, thank you. Got it.
You're welcome.
Let's see here. Anyone else? Q&A. Let's go try to stump Karen here. That's what I'd like to play.
Oh, that should be,
it's pretty hard.
It should be pretty easy. No, it should be easy.
Now. Come on. I don't think you've ever, I haven't been able to stump you yet. So.
Okay, well, sure. You're giving me way too much credit. Thank you.
I think there was a really good question that says, I have QuickBooks Contractor Pro. It's my understanding is that QBOL is not as robust. Is that true?
No, it is not true. And I'm going to confidently say that. We have to remember that QuickBooks is an accounting software, right? And in QuickBooks Desktop, most people want to be able to manage costs using 2 or 3 different reports. Now, QuickBooks Online gave you an entire area called projects. You're able to manage profitability. You're able to manage time. You're able to manage how far, like in the project, if it's an active project, not an active project, like it's online. You can have 5 people working at a time. You don't have to back it up. You have awesome integration opportunities like QuickBooks Desktop, still around. But in my opinion, online is definitely the way to go. And you just need to have probably the right person helping navigate what that looks like to make it work for you.
So send Karen and her team an email.
Yeah, I have an awesome
or give them a
team,
phone call
so,
and they can get started with it and help you navigate those waters.
Because we get it all the time, by the way.
Right. Yep.
There was another really good question referring to the reports from Alyssa saying, are you able to pull this report, which was the last report you guys were covering, with the actual costs if the jobs are projects? And where can we find that?
That is a projects report. Yes. You're only going to find it in the projects area.
Is there something similar for jobs in QuickBooks? I can't think of a report, but I'm pretty sure there is something that will do that for jobs.
Yeah, I mean, in true QuickBooks fashion, there's like 3 ways to get one thing. I think a lot of it happens to be the way that we're entering data. So yeah, can we customize a report that can give you some information? Yes. Just off the top of my head, there are no particular reports that you can get that would be the best reports are found in the projects area related to jobs.
Awesome. Thanks for those questions, Felicia. Yeah, what else you got?
So in theory, it is safe to use the projects in QuickBooks to show my boss, husband, how important it is to have the employees properly clocking in and out of the tasks and jobs associated with such, without guessing on what reports to show him. And if you need to look at that, that is in the open question and answer.
Okay, I'll have to see. And I'm sorry, maybe I heard that wrong. Just to know which reports to show on where they're working. Is that basically what we're
Yeah, is it safe to use projects in QuickBooks to show my boss, husband, how important it is to have the employees properly clocking in and out of the tasks and jobs associated with such?
Well, if you're job costing, there's one great thing. And how many, you can get information on a ClockShark. Don't forget, like you now have 2 areas that you can get some of that reporting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can pull reports out of ClockShark that show the time worked on specific jobs and tasks as well.
Right. Because a lot of times, and I'm just going to guess, your husband might be like, in the mental bank, like, I know how many hours they've been on that job. And then when sometimes you can show a physical paper or something that says this is how many, and like, wait a minute, that's not right. That's right. It's not right because we haven't been able to implement this process to make this better. And, you know, not a fun dinner conversation, but
accuracy is the key, right?
Yeah.
So awesome. Let's take a look and see what else we have. Let's see here. Alfredo commented early on about the coffee stain comments on timesheets. Hits so close to home. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah,
because we talk
it's
about
real.
that all the time on timesheets.
Struggle's real.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Felicia, are there any other that we should address? I don't see anything else coming in.
I think somebody asked, is ClockShark now tracking classes to import for different days and employees?
It's a good question. You can track classes, but it's mapped to one job per class. It's kind of an interesting setup. It hasn't something we're working on to see how else we can implement the use of classes, but I don't believe it's implemented to what they're looking for yet.
I was just going to jump in, and maybe you'll find that you're using classes, and that's great, but maybe there's new functionality that allow you to not have to use classes. I mean, I'm not saying you don't, but
is it true that classes is kind of a more of a just reporting function or organization?
Classes used to be the way to track jobs. I mean, I would say, you know, profit and loss by customer, or people would use classes. And then as the more options come out and the more, you know, and now you're just getting so much more on the project screen than you would by just getting that one report.
So maybe check out projects and try to steer away from classes potentially if necessary.
Yeah. If you're looking just kind of get reorganized, you know, just reach out. Our team can, you know, help you if you find that we're a good fit, you know, to help you kind of navigate that.
Exactly. And speaking of that, here's how to get in touch with ClockShark. So we have our friendly 800 number there. Always call us anytime. We're happy to help out. Drop us an email, all of our socials, lots of good stuff. And then to get in touch with Karine and her team, for anyone that needs some QuickBooks organization help, get started, whatever it might be, definitely give them a call as well, or send them an email. They're awesome. We love working with them. So great resource for everyone here on the webinar.
Well, thank you. I mean, reach out. Just hopefully this was helpful. And there's, you know, a lot of pieces that go into, I mean, you know, we kind of ran through it, but we know that there's more. So
right. It's always fun to try to fit specific things like this into a webinar and get all the questions answered. So definitely reach out to either ClockShark or 24-Hour Bookkeeper and Karine, and we're happy to help you guys get connected, even if we need to, and get you make sure you get successful with it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate you joining us, Karine, and all your expertise on QuickBooks, and the rest of your team. And Michelle, thanks for joining us. Felicia, everyone on the webinar, thanks for joining, and check out for the recording tomorrow. Feel free to send it to, you know, anyone else you think might be interested in watching it. And thanks all again, and have a great day. See ya.